Dear students, you are welcome once again to another session, and my name is Moses Wanchiri. This time we are going to discuss depression, and we are going to follow our outline. As you can see here, our objectives are: 1, by the end of this session, you are expected to be able to define depression. You are also expected to be able to describe the causes of depression. You will be expected also to be able to describe the signs and symptoms of depression. And we shall conclude with you being able to describe the management of a patient with depression. Now, depression is a mental disorder that is characterized by persistent sadness, hopelessness or hopeless mood, loss of energy, loss of interest, and sometimes the loss of interest is in the daily normal activities, and sometimes low self-esteem. Now, the clinical feature of depression also varies, like the other mental disorders we discussed before. The clinical symptoms may be mild, they may be moderate, or even severe. And at the same time, they may occur with or without psychotic symptoms. In other words, we are saying that they may occur when they are being accompanied with delusions. They may occur when they are being accompanied with hallucinations. So, depression can occur according to severity. There may be psychotic features, or the psychotic features may not be there. Now, what causes depression? Earlier on, we introduced ourselves to affective disorder, and you know very well that this one is also an affective disorder. So just like in the affective disorder mania that we discussed earlier, depression a person who suffers from depression can be predisposed to it genetically. So a genetic factor is highly implicated in the causation of depression. And in this case, still, there is no gene that carries the disease depression. But then the predisposition, one's liability, the weakness to suffer from the disease can be passed on from parent to offspring. And in this case, neurotransmitters like noradrenaline and serotonin are implicated. And this ability, either to produce little or excess of the neurotransmitter, can be predisposed genetically. And therefore, we are saying that depression can be passed on or can occur or run in families. And in this case of patients having depression, they have a deficit of the neurotransmitter noradrenaline or norepinephrine, and they have a deficit of serotonin. Okay, so what are the clinical features of depression? Now, you realize that depression is one of the common mental disorders. In fact, when we talk of common mental disorders, actually we are meaning depression and anxiety. So, depression is one of the common mental disorders, and it is a disorder that sometimes is poorly understood. Most people with depression go undiagnosed, they suffer silently, and therefore they go even untreated. In fact, some people have varying descriptions of depression. One patient described depression as being in a dark pit with sinking sand. Can you imagine that? In other words, you are in a dark pit but with the sinking sand. you want to come out, when you place one leg in order to come out, the leg goes into the sinking sand. You try to remove this one, you have to step down, then the other one sinks into the sand. So it is really a disgusting a situation that is not worth living. So clinical features of depression vary according to one's individual differences, It also varies according to cultural background. You know very well that in most common societies in Africa, men are not supposed to show that they have feared. They are not supposed to show that they are sad. They are not supposed to show that they are overwhelmed with the situation. So they become firm. And for that matter, they tend to mask their depression. And therefore, these people may have depression, but they mask it. They don't want to cry because it is shaming. So they tend to mask their depression. So we are saying that the signs and symptoms vary according to individual differences. They vary also according to culture. And depression may also be accompanied by anxiety. And usually, whenever there is depression, there is an underlying anxiety. Whenever there is anxiety, there is also depression under there. So, depression may also be accompanied by anxiety, may be accompanied by agitation. In fact, some patients present with agitation just, or sometimes irritability. Instead of the common symptoms that we know, the person presents with agitation, then they may have psychomotor retardation, and sometimes stupor, what we refer to as depressive stupor. Now, let us talk about the somatic symptoms or somatic complaints that the patient may have. One of the somatic complaints the patients may have are palpitations. Palpitations is awareness of the heartbeat. You know very well that our hearts started working before we were born. But when you start becoming aware that your heart is working, go for help, because that is a disease now. We are supposed to have our hearts working, but without knowing that our hearts are working. So one of the somatic complaints that people with depression may be having are palpitations. These patients may have headaches, or they may complain of heaviness in the head. Sometimes they may have vague or specific pains affecting various parts of the body. They may say, I have pain in the shoulders. Some people may tell you, it is like I carried something heavy. It's like I worked so much and I became so tired. And by the time they are having this kind of feeling, it is very early in the morning when they are supposed to be fresh. They may have abdominal pain. Some people may have waist pain, or even backache. Yeah. Some patients also have persistent feeling of fatigue. And this fatigue probably is brought about because of the tension. You can imagine muscles are tensed up all the time, and it causes a feeling of tiredness. Even when somebody is sleeping, muscles are tensed up. So they have that persistent feeling of fatigue. They have a sensation of heat. Sometimes they may say some things move within their bodies. If they are ladies, they may have dysmenorrhea. And then also this depression may be accompanied by psychotic symptoms. And for psychotic depression, the somatic symptoms may take the form of nihilistic delusion. Remember, a delusion is a psychotic symptom. And therefore, these somatic symptoms that we are talking about, if it is psychotic depression, that is depression that is occurring with psychotic symptoms, the somatic symptoms take the form of a nihilistic delusion. Now, these patients may also have disturbance in physiological functioning. So in addition to the above symptoms that we've been talking about, The patient may have physical symptoms, and these ones may be loss of energy. The person just doesn't have energy to do virtually anything. Even sometimes they may have no energy to come out of bed. Even carrying out simple activities like brushing the teeth, going to bed, freshening up, doing some cleaning, or even activities of daily living, they cannot be able to do them because of the loss of energy. And then they have loss of interest. And this loss of interest, we are saying, is a loss of interest in previously pleasurable activities. You could be a person who likes football so much that you can never miss a match. But this time, even when the TV is there and your favorite team is playing, you may decide either to switch it off or even face the other side or even go away. So we are saying that the person lacks interest in previously pleasurable activities. Then there is loss of sleep, which is popularly called insomnia. And this insomnia may be early, the person stays on bed and then sleeps late in the night, or may go to the bed, sleeps immediately, then he spends the rest of the night when he's awake. This condition also is characterized by loss of appetite, and some people may have also symptoms that are of the GIT, which are constipation. The person finds difficulty in passing stool or may take long without going to the toilet. And then sometimes they lose weight, and for ladies they may have amenorrhea. They miss their periods actually, even when there is no evidence of pregnancy. Now, something to note: symptoms of depression become worse at night. Symptoms of depression worsen at night. And this one is described as diurnal variation. And in fact, most of our patients having depression have their symptoms worsening at night. And if they are to commit suicide, they commit suicide in early morning or late hours of the night or early in the morning. That's because the symptoms become worse, usually at night. Now let us talk about another symptom, the mood and appearance. The person has a sad and hopeless mood. They appear sad, they are hopeless, and their facial expression and physical expression that is that of hopelessness and dejection. These people have furrowing of the eyebrows. In fact, their eyebrows tend to furrow downwards, while those ones that are happy, they furrow upwards. Yeah. If we are to have maybe a description here, if this was the head of a person, you find that the person who is having depression, if those are the eyes, they will have the eyes like that, and then there they will have such a what? An appearance. And if the hair there, so they have furrowing in their what? In their face. While those ones that are actually having mania, they look a little bit happier. You see, their angles are high there, and the furrows are upwards. While this one, the furrows are downwards, and then the eyes gaze downwards. And that is depression. So that's what I'm describing as furrowing of the eyebrow. Then there is lack, or they look apathetic, they gaze downwards, and sometimes they face in one point, gazing downwards of the floor, at the floor, and their shoulders are drawn upwards. In fact, this is also a sign of being anxious, having anxiety. You find that if a person is anxious, they tend to, these depressed patients, they tend to gaze downwards, and then their shoulders are pointing upwards. And sometimes even if they are given a chair, they may not sit and relax. You know, I'm seated relaxed in this chair. Yeah. But for a patient who is depressed and having depression and anxiety, will sit and he will be just at the edge of the what? The chair, and then the shoulders will be what? Will be high up. Then this patient talks slowly in a low voice, and sometimes on top of the low voice, they are having a monosyllabic kind of expression. They talk words one after the other, and sometimes with poverty of content, and they may require to be probed in order to give details of what they are communicating. Then they remain seated in one place for a long time, which is also described as psychomotor retardation. But in agitated depression, somebody may become restless. They may pant all the time, panting, pacing up and down, wringing of fingers. Then they pace up and down. Then they are continuously moving the legs and hands. And at the same time, they can easily cry. The easy tearing. The patient cries easily. Sometimes we think that it is a kind of personality, that when a person is abused, he cries easily. But people who easily cry are actually having an underlying depressive disorder. And if a person encounters something small and he ends up crying, he's having an underlying depressive disorder. So in this case, people easily cry, or they tear easily. They have low self-esteem. They sympathize with themselves. They think they are not worthy. They cannot manage. They feel they are very poor. They are people of low class. They need help all the time. They are supposed to be favored because of their physical and intellectual disability. Then they have reduced self-confidence. They have guilt feelings, and these guilt feelings are not for things that actually happened, but they feel guilty of things that even do not concern them. Presently, we have a problem of COVID-19, but a person with depression may think because he never prayed. We know very well that prayer changes things, but at this point, it is not because he did or she did not pray that is causing thousands of people to die. So they feel guilty, they have guilty feelings, then they even exaggerate past mistakes, simple mistakes. I wish I went to school. I wish I did for a paper. I wish I qualified a year earlier. I would have got a better job. I wish I'm not my tribe. Yeah, some people sympathize with themselves because they are a certain race. I wish I was not an African. I wish I was a different kind of profession, not the profession which I am. So they tend to have those guilty feelings. They have feelings of unworthiness or feelings of shame. They are there. There is nothing actually that would make anybody to become ashamed, but they have a feeling of shame. And then they are pessimistic. They feel as if the future has nothing to offer. Could this be why they want to end their life? Yes. If the future has nothing to offer, then you would rather die and leave the earth early without suffering a lot. Sometimes patients may become irritable, anxious, and they appear distressed. Now, some of these patients may have alteration of the cognitive process. And this alteration of cognitive process may be characterized by reduced concentration. The person cannot concentrate. Yeah? They cannot follow the chronology of events. They are thinking about this, the other, they are pacing, beginning this, before it is complete, they begin the other, blame themselves, feel guilty, and all those things. So they have reduced concentration, they have reduced attention, and maybe here I need to explain the difference between concentration and attention. Concentration is one's ability to follow the chronology of events. For example, we test it using serial 7, and we can say 100 minus 7. The person gives you the answer, 93. Then you say minus 7 until you go to the list. And if he's a person who is not interested in math, you can ask him for the longest word. What longest word do you know? Photosynthesis. Then he says, okay, can you spell for me the word? He spells the word. And after spelling the word, then you say, okay, can you spell the word from where it ends to where it begins? And you see how he really concentrates. While attention is one's ability to use his senses to capture information. A person who is always telling you pardon means that his attention is poor. So that's the difference of those two words. Then the other symptom, which is an alteration in cognitive process, these people may have suicidal ideas. Since they have anhedonia, they have no pleasure. Did you know that we work for pleasure? Almost all our stone on earth, we are working for pleasure. But imagine when you do not have ability to experience pleasure, even when there are pleasurable things given to you or availed to you, you cannot experience pleasure. Then you would rather die. So these people usually have suicidal ideas, and sometimes when they are having agony, they even end up admiring those people who died. A person can go, and when he is passing by a cemetery, he even stops a little to gaze at those people, admiring them. Oh, those people in the grave, at least with them they are resting. And he admires the graves. So they have ideas of suicide, or they may have ideas of self-harm, which is deliberate. They injure themselves, they can cut themselves, this time not with an intention of dying, but they may just self-destructive kind of actions. Then they have altered judgment, in which they have difficulty in making decisions, even simple decisions. When I wake up, what should I begin with? They cannot even make simple decisions about their life. They have altered thought process, in which they have slowed thinking process. They may have delusions of poverty. They feel they are poor. Even when they have money, better than many other people, with them they have a belief that they are poor, which we are describing as a delusion of poverty. They have frightening dreams when they are asleep. Instead of dreaming things which are positive, they are dreaming snakes are taking me, we are in a grave, the aliens are killing us, we are at a funeral, and then maybe there are spirits that are chasing us, they are thieves. So these are the frightening what? Dreams. Then they have altered thought content, which are delusions of unworthiness, hypochondriac delusions, and then altered perception, which is characterized by auditory hallucinations, in which patients hear voices of unseen people. Voices of unseen people. Now, unlike the voices that occur in mania, which are praising these people, which are really praising them, they are singing and doing good things, the voices in depression also emphasize the delusional belief that the patient has. And therefore, the voices are denigrating, they are degrading, they are humiliating, they are demeaning. Or sometimes they are voices that are choosing the patient for past mistakes, or confirming the delusional beliefs of unworthiness. Yes, it is true. You are unworthy. You are worth dying. You are ugly. And sometimes they often instruct them to kill themselves or commit suicide. Patients may have also delusions of unworthiness that make them to believe that they are useless, or sometimes they are good for nothing. You can imagine. They are either useless, or even if they were good, they were even good for nothing. Then the person may develop suicidal ideas, and sometimes they end up even committing suicide. Patients may also believe to be that they are a witch. Yeah? You can imagine. You may not even be knowing how to bewitch, but you start believing that you are a witch, you are a great sinner, and therefore you are very ugly, you smell, and therefore at the end of the day you are not worthy living. The patient may also have hypochondriacal delusions, and the patient may believe that his body has changed or part of it has disappeared. There is a patient who said he cannot carry water because his head is not there. But even if you convince him that, please, the mouth that is talking is on your head, he says, but no, I don't have my head. My hand is a stick. And he believes so. The person may believe my stomach or my abdomen is full of snakes instead of intestines. A person may also believe that his blood has changed in color. Sometimes the brain has also changed the color. The blood is green, or my blood does not reach the brain. But can you live without the blood reaching the brain? Of course you cannot live. Can anybody have green blood? He cannot have. But these are beliefs that the patient who is depressed may have. And they are really perturbing. You can imagine, you feel you are different from other people. Then, the person may also have delusions of persecution. Sometimes, the person may believe that people are persecuting him. They are looking for, they are witch hunting him. They want to kill him. They want to destroy his animals. They are about hurting him. All the plans that are being made are about hurting him or his family or even his property, like destroying crops or even destroying what? His animals. The patient may also have altered motor behavior. And in this case, they have decreased energy, as we said earlier, and therefore their actions will also be decreased. They have loss of initiative, even to do goal-directed activities, which are activities of daily living. And the person may have slow speech. They may have psychomotor retardation. The psychomotor retardation is referring to the slowness of thinking that then makes the slowness in movement or the slowness in action. Psychomotor retardation may be, probably, let me explain to you, if probably a person was trying to explain to you about a match that was very interesting. Yeah? A person with the increased psychomotor activity will even put actions. They scored a goal. Huh? But if a person is having psychomotor retardation, you may have even to probe him. What happened? They scored. What was a goal? And then he does not even add any kind of action on top of what he's saying. Therefore, we are saying psychomotor retardation. The thinking, the slow thinking, affects the slow movement or even the slow action. So these people may take long to answer questions. They move in a way that is annoyingly very slow. They have difficulties in making decisions, and in the severe cases of psychomotor retardation, the person is described as having depressive stupor, whereby they take positions and take so long in changing those positions, and sometimes they may be even mute or unresponsive. And those are the symptoms of depression. Now, management of depression, the following are the main themes that are the management of depression is done. 1, prevention of possible self-injury or prevention of suicide. Remember, these principles or these headings have various content in them. Then we have elevation of a depressive mood, and there are so many things that we can do to alleviate a depressive mood, including administration or prescription of antidepressants. Then maintenance or maintaining optimal nutritional status. They don't have appetite, and if they are staying alone, they don't have even initiative to prepare food that they may eat. Then alleviation of insomnia. These people lack sleep, or they have a reduced need to sleep. So they may need to alleviate insomnia. Then there is a need for alleviation of the somatic complaints. Remember, most of these people have more of the somatic complaints than the psychological complaints. So they will come with the physical complaints other than the psychological complaints. So we need to alleviate the somatic complaints that they are having. For example, if a person is having palpitations, we may have to administer beta blockers to reduce, if at all the blood pressure is normal, we can have a little dose of beta blockers to reduce the palpitation, and we shall have solved that problem of the somatic complaints. Then we need to eliminate delusions or alleviate delusions, and this one can be done by the use of antipsychotics. And then also eliminating hallucinations. All these two, the delusions and hallucinations, can be alleviated when we give appropriate antipsychotics. Then we need to restore the worker role. Remember, these people, they have psychomotor retardation. They are disinterested in their environment, and sometimes even their work. They are irritable even to workmates. So we need to, in our care or management, we need to restore the worker role. We need also to preserve the family role. Some of these patients whom we treat are students. Some of them are husbands with a family having a wife and children. Some of them are the wives. They are having a husband and children. The husband is having a wife and children. So we need to restore the family role. Then also we eliminate constipation. And the elimination of constipation may not necessarily be pharmacological. We give a person foods with a lot of roughage. They take a lot of water, improve exercises, and then the constipation might be reduced. Then also we improve self-esteem. We can improve self-esteem by the health worker patient relationship or nurse patient relationship. Sometimes we do not observe simple things like respecting our patients. A patient may have taken years without being addressed as Sir, Mr. So and so, or Madam so and so. So if you use such respectful kind of communication, respectful kind of handling of the patient, if you are calling a patient, we are looking for Mr. Samanya, we are looking for Madam Roy. You know, those kind of respect to the patient tends to improve their self-esteem. And that makes the end of our discussion today. And we have defined depression. We talked about the causes of depression. Then we described the signs and symptoms of depression. And we also briefly described the management of depression. Now, just as before, we have an assignment. And in this assignment, we are going to do the following. Again, in one page, I want you to write the topic, which this time is depression, and you do the following. You write your name and then the student number. I want you to state 5 things that you have learned from this video, the discussion we've had, and the notes, the available material that you have had about depression. Whether the notes that I've given you, there is a summary notes that is sent on WhatsApp, and there are notes that you have received on mails or even on the Moodle. If you read them and accompanied with this video, I want you to write 5 things that you have learned. Lessons that you have learned from this discussion of depression. I want also to state for me 5 things that you expected to find, but you have not seen them in our discussion and the notes that you have been availed with. Then you write for me 5 things that one shouldn't miss in the management of a person with depression. I don't expect you to list things that are directly from the notes. I want you to think and get me from your thought. What have you learned? You write 5 things. What are those things that you expected to find in a topic like this one, but in the notes they are not there, and in my discussion they are not there? You state 5, and then you state for me 5 things that one should not miss while managing a patient with depression. I expect you to send this on the mail. And remember, the sending of this work is the one that is your signing in on the attendance list. So in case you don't send this work, it means you did not attend this lecture. And I want you to write things that are logical. Don't write just to finish, because these ones will account for a certain percentage of our mark in the final assessment. Thank you very much. I wish you well and hope to meet again in the next discussion. Thank you.